The United States makes the UN work when it wants it to work. And that is exactly the way it should be, because the only question for the United States is what's in our national interest.
My name is John, and the International Criminal Court is now in session. It is November 19th, 2025, and once again we are going to look at the situation within Ukraine. So, let's begin. First of all, we are going to look at the Gulaipol or Gulaipole/Dnipropetrovsk direction. The Russians have continued their advance towards the town of Gulaipole, and as far as I'm concerned, the Russians are about to seize control of 3 more villages, all of which are on the outskirts of Gulaipole. Zaryshashia, Zeleny Gai, and Viskoe, or Visoke. Once these 3 villages are seized here, then it's safe to assume that Gulaipole is 100% cooked. Like, the armed forces of Ukraine are not going to be able to stop any Russian pushes into the town itself. It's literally finished. And to be honest with you guys, I wouldn't be surprised, as I said in multiple videos in the past, if the AFU doesn't even put up a fight for this town, because the defenses here are just bad. The logistics are just bad. Like, everything regarding this town right now for the AFU is terrible. So I wouldn't be surprised if they were to run away from it without a fight. Meanwhile, in the Dnipropetrovsk region, the Russians reportedly captured the village of Nechaivka, but we don't have any confirmation of this by the Vostok group, even though it's likely that this is the case. The village of Gai, which is south of Alexandrivka and Pokrovsky, has also been captured too, so that means we can expect the Battle of Pokrovsky to begin relatively soon, that is, probably before Christmas of 2025, along with the village of Bidradne. We can definitely expect this to fall quickly too. So basically, everything to the opposite side of the Hanchor River, I think, is easily going to fall to the Russians. And then after that, yeah, they're going to begin the push north. And then, yeah, we'll see a battle for Pokrovsky and Alexandrovka. We still don't have any word from Taiki, and also we don't have any word yet from Veliki Kamikhalivka, even though we can assume that both are being contested right now by the Vostok group. Now, in the Novopavlovka/Dnipropetrovsk direction, the Russians were reportedly repelled and kicked out of the village by the armed forces of Ukraine. But recent geolocations provided by the AFU themselves have suggested otherwise. The Russians have taken more control of Novopavlivka and have crossed the Solina River too, taking control over this block here within Novopavlovka. Now, as I said, if this village falls to Russia, then we can definitely expect the Battle of Mazoba not too long from now. Either late next month or January 2026. In the city of Pokrovsk, the main event, the Russians have basically captured the entire city except for these northern dachas, which are categorized by Syriac in a gray zone, but I wouldn't be surprised whatsoever if in the next 1 to 2 days before Turkey Day, that is, it's that he would declare all of Pokrovsk to be under Russian control. We already have a couple of pro-Ukraine accounts, that is, on Twitter X, especially Live UA Map, that is, that have already declared the city of Pokrovsk to be under Russian control. And also, we can expect not too long from now that Deep State UA will probably color more of Pokrovsk as well as being controlled by Russia. But I don't think they're going to admit the full loss of the city for another 1 to 2 months. In the city of Mayanograd, the entirety of southern Mayanograd itself has fallen to the Russians, even though some cleanups are still ongoing. But on the map that I made for myself and for anyone who's interested, that is, which I put it in my Telegram channel, the Russians have not only taken everything here, but they've also taken these fields that would separate Pokrovsk and Mayanograd. And in the northern part of the city, the Russians have seized the majority of these commie blocks here and are now advancing onto the central part of the city. Mayanograd, as we speak right now, is being bombed severely by the Russian armed forces. Well, the Air Force, that is. And I just don't honestly think the AFU is going to really be able to escape this area. I feel like we're going to see a lot of deceased AFU troops when this is all over. Maybe some will surrender, but I think most of the Ukrainian losses here are going to be from being killed in action. So, yeah, almost 50% of Mayanograd is under Russian control, with Pokrovsk now being 100% controlled, it is, by the Russians. And with that, we can move on to the next front. In the Konstantinovka direction, the village of Ivanopilia is now under 50% Russian control, and I won't be surprised if by the start of December, if not like the second week of the month, that is, it's that it would fall to the Russians, which in turn would allow the Russians to consolidate their positions in the city of Konstantinovka, which is the first piece of the greater Slavyansk-Kramatorsk puzzle to be assembled. And as far as I know, I think the Russians are going to take this village, and then once it happens, everything here that would go to the village of Berestov, that is, will be taken by the Russians, and as a result, they'll be able to advance on the much more well-defended areas in Konstantinovka, which would include these commie blocks here, which is in the southern part of the city. And breaking news, the town of Siversk is directly now under attack by the Russians. They have taken over 25, if not 30% of the town of Siversk already after a recent Russian breakthrough in the area. And as far as I know, it seems as if the armed forces of Ukraine might give up basically most, if not the entire town, to the Russians. This comes after the Russians have broken through the final defensive lines south of the town of Siversk, but also Planovka has fallen to Russian control too, and because of that, Siversk is now in a de facto cauldron. Which effectively means, that is that Ukrainians can no longer get in or get out of Siversk, and anyone who is still here at this point is walking into a death trap. So, Siversk is probably going to fall before Christmas, for sure. And then after that, we're going to get the Battle of Liman. And speaking of which, Yampol is, which the Ukrainians retook majority of, is about to come under Russian control again, because now that Siversk is going to be gone soon, basically there will be no way for the Ukrainians to defend Yampol. So, it's going to be abandoned. Now, one more thing to look at, or actually two more things to look at. So, the situation in Kupiansk hasn't changed except for some fields here and villages like Kuryalivka and Pischane being put back under Ukrainian control, but that's about it. There have been reports of some Ukrainian counteroffensives taking place in the city of Kupiansk itself, but we don't have any evidence whatsoever to support those claims. And also, in addition, and this will be the last part of the video before I get going, the city of Volchansk is about to fall to Russia. The armed forces of Ukraine have lost control over the village of Tasihilne, and the Russians have also now seized control over the majority of southern Volchansk. The battle is coming to a close, unfortunately, with the full destruction of the town, but as I said, it's coming to a close. The Russians are about to completely capture Volchansk from the armed forces of Ukraine after a whole year of battle. It's definitely one of the longest battles in the war's history, without a doubt. And with the loss of Volchansk to the Russians, it's only a matter of time before they push further south towards the village of Bili Kolodiaz and also Veliki Berlik, which is down here. And I won't be surprised if sometime in 2026 that the Russians will truly kickstart their counteroffensive to reverse all of the losses they made in 2022 to the AFU. And then once that happens, basically all AFU morale is going to be completely destroyed. Now, before I get going, I want to mention one last thing. A corruption scandal has recently broken out in Ukraine itself, and apparently around 4 to 5 key members of President Zelensky's government have fled the country or are like arrested or something. Like, I don't know what's going on with that, but A big corruption scandal is unfolding, and apparently, as far as I know, it may lead to the downfall of Zelensky's right-hand man, which is Yermak. And if that man were to go, I honestly believe that Zelensky, as we know it, is finished. He is cooked. And therefore, the entire Ukraine, as we know it, will be cooked too, if Yermak's firing is to be confirmed. They said he was going to be fired today, but it didn't happen. Maybe he may not get fired at all, but the scandal, as far as I know, is really bad. And it may be the worst thing that could possibly ever happen to the Kiev regime in a very long time. Probably the worst thing that could happen to them since the start of the war itself in February 2022. And that's going to do it for today's update. So I hope all of you found it interesting, informative, and somewhat entertaining. And I'll catch you all later in the next 3 days, which will be on the anniversary of President Kennedy's death. And I'll see you all next time, everybody. So I hope every single one of you has a great day, great evening, great afternoon, wherever you are. And I'll see you all next time. So take care and goodbye.